Hello viewers and my dear students. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Zahida Begum Sheikh, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Government Degree College, Hayatnagar. Today I am going to discuss about a great political thinker and who is a great political philosopher also, and also a father of political science. He is none other than the Aristotle. So, apart from his education, his thoughts and his views, he has given us lot of motivational and valuable quotes which I will follow in below slides. So keep watch and keep follow all the slides as well as my explanation also. So next I will take introduction about Aristotle. So Greek political philosophy starts with Socrates. Socrates, who is the teacher of Plato, and Plato was the noblest, sincere disciple of Socrates, as well as Aristotle was the noblest and the most sincere disciple of Plato. Aristotle is known as the best and the first Platonist. So, about Aristotle, he is a philosopher and still perhaps the greatest name in the history of philosophy, and his work covered the whole range of the natural sciences, and he was considered a great authority as well. Aristotle was a genius well versed in a number of disciplines: aesthetics, biology, ethics, logic, physics, and also politics and psychology also. He combined research with teaching, dominating the entire spectrum of human thought for centuries. In the history of Western intellectual tradition, both Plato and Aristotle enjoyed a preeminent position as the great masters. While Plato was an idealist and a radical, Aristotle is a realist and a moderate. Aristotle has been regarded as the father of political science, as he was the first to analyze critically and systematically the term existing constitutions and classified them. His classification of constitution is still used in understanding constitutions comparatively. He was one of the earliest to use the comparative method, a method that has continued to be relevant even today. So we move on. Aristotle's life sketch. Aristotle was born in 384 BC at Stagira, a Greek colony, which is located on the northeastern coast of the Aegean Sea. His father, Nicomachus, was a court physician to King Eminentus III of Macedonia and father of Philip the Great. Aristotle lost his father when he was still a child. He lived at Stagira for a period of 18 years. It was in 367 BC that he migrated to Athens in order to study philosophy under Plato. Aristotle remained attached to the Academy of Plato for 20 years until the death of Plato in 347 BC. After Plato's death, Aristotle expected to elevate it to the leadership of the academy, but contrary to his expectations, he was deprived of the position on the ground that he was not a native Athenian. This left him extremely disappointed. In the year 342 BC, he was invited to the Macedonian court by King Philip to take up the tutorship of Crown Prince Alexander, who was only 13 years of age at that time. He remained there until 336 BC when Alexander was called to ascend the throne of Macedonia after the murder of his father. In 335 BC, Aristotle opened a rival school known as the Lyceum. It was during the period that Aristotle devoted himself with extraordinary industry to the pursuit of a program in investigation through speculation. Industry to the pursuit of a program of, I repeat, investigation through speculation and teaching in almost every branch of knowledge. From 335 BC till his death, he devoted himself to research, teaching, and administrative duties in Lyceum, which was more than a school or a university. It was a public leisure center also, where Aristotle lectured to his chosen students in the mornings and the general public in the evenings. Being an informal school, it had no examinations, no degrees, no syllabus, official enrollment, and fees. Ironically, in spite of his close links with Alexander the Great and the latter's world conquests, Aristotle remained obvious of the fundamental changes in the political complexity or political complexion of the city states. He continued to see the self sufficient and self governing city state or the police at his ideal. At the time when the police was in its twilight period, being delegated history, all these states changed into an empire, and Alexander began to forge links between the Greek and non Greeks. Aristotle spent the last year of his life in Chalcis in Euboea. He died in 322 BC at the age of 62 on account of chronic indigestion rendered acute by overwork, as certified by his physician. We move on our next slide, that is Aristotle's writings. In the entire history of political theory, there is no thinker comparable with Aristotle. One of his ancient biographers remarked that he wrote a large number of books, close to around 150, in every field, and most of them were excellent. Many of these have been lost, and only 20% survived, which were located notes belongs to the Lyceum period. A catalogue of Aristotle's titles speaks of the breadth of subjects and his mastery over them. Since of the titles were politics, Nicomachean ethics, on monarchy, and number 5 on colonies, 6 on philosophy, 7 constitutions, 8 metaphysics, 9 on justice, 10 on the politics or poets, 11 on wealth, 12 on the soul, 13th book on pleasure, 14th book on the sciences, 15th book on the spices and genius, 16th deductions, definitions, lectures, and political theory. It's contained on 8 books, and 17th the art of rhetoric, and 18th on the Pythagorean, 19th on animals, 20 dissections. It contains 7 books, and 21 on plants, and 22 on motion, and 23 on astronomy, and 24 Homeric problems. It contains 6 books, and 25 on magnets, and 26 Olympic victors, and 27 proverbs and on the river Nile, etc. These are all the excellent books written by Aristotle. The most well known of Aristotle's works were in the Politics and the Nicomachean and its only ethics. The constitution of Athens dealt with the Athenian constitution. Aristotle's style was simple and scientific, unlike Plato's literary and poetic style. Aristotle was terse with concise arguments. His lectures often were more an exposition of his research interests. He pursued research not in isolation but in the country of his colleagues and friends. Aristotle's famous book Politics consists of 8 books which can conveniently be divided into 3 parts. The first 3 books form the basis and provide material for the ideal development in books 4, 5, 6, which from another part of the treatise and deal with nature of conditions and their similarities and dissimilarities with each other. Books 6, 7 and 8 deal with the constitution of an ideal state most suited to a city state which is a Platonic in nature. The central theme of the politics was the polis, a city state, an institution that was unique and 5th century BC. There was detailed examination of nature of the state and its origins, an analysis of the ideal state and the different constitutions of actual states, the concepts of citizenship also in this politics. We'll move on our next slide, that is Aristotle's contemporary conditions. The political atmosphere in which Aristotle lived was not quite different from that of Plato. He too, like his master, lived through anarchy and war in the Greek city states. He had witnessed the fall of Sparta. Like Plato, Aristotle also believed in the unity and stability of political life. His politics seems clearly to have been intended primarily as a statesman's manual, a textbook for constitution makers who, through their constitutional plan, were to provide political unity and stability to the life of the state by arresting frequent changes. His study were influenced the political atmosphere in which he lived. So, this is the contemporary condition where Plato lived as same as Aristotle, also in same condition or in same political atmosphere. So, we just focus on our next slide, that is Aristotle's views on human nature and state. According to Aristotle, the state was the highest form of political union as a represented the pinnacle of social evolution. It was necessary for its provided a framework for the satisfaction of basic wants and also ensured to means to secure and realize good life in a uniquely human sense. An individual find fulfillment from the advantages made by or made possible by a state through its common endeavors, and who did not feel its needs was either an angel or an beast. According to Aristotle, the state was prior to the individual as it provided opportunities for the achievement of full humanity. The state was an instrument for an individual's self perfection. Far from being artificially or contractually created, it evolved naturally. Aristotle contended that man by nature was a political animal, making the state necessary and desirable. The significant point to note is that Aristotle's reference to nature confirmed the debate between nomos is a Greek word that means convention and physis, it is also a Greek word and it means nature, that dominated Greek political theory in the 5th century BC. As advocated of the physis, that is, nature agreements, both Plato and Aristotle asserted that the state and its laws were more than product of convention. Aristotle asserted that education was the effective way to produce political unity, though he criticized his mentor for not recognizing its political significance. If the farmer and the guardian, for example, if the farmer and the guardian were to receive the same education, then how could one expect them to perform different functions? Conversely, if they did not receive similar education, then it would be a mistake to assume that educations could unify the city. For Aristotle, education was more than merely acquiring skills and common beliefs, a point of reiterated by Adam Smith in his plea for the division of labor and his specialization of skills. Education to Aristotle symbolized a way of life for individuals learned largely by doing. Its goal was not unify and to foster and protect a way of life that encouraged the sustained diverse social and political activists. For Aristotle, a good comma of a community was clearly the greater, the perfect thing to attain and preserve than the good of a single individual. This did not mean that an individual could be made to sacrifice their private for the public. For Aristotle, private life was necessary, though not a sufficient condition for enjoying a full human existence. When Aristotle characterized human being as essential social, he has in mind those animals which live and work together as a community. Social animals, though not applicable to all gregarious ones, have a single common activity that unites them, and that is the reason are why human beings orbit towards the state. Rights of citizenship enable to use of one's unique human faculties, though participation in the common life of the community. Aristotle pointed out that the state evolved from the lower associations. The first association was the household or the family, which arose to satisfy an individual's biological urges and everybody wants. A cluster of households became a village, and a group of villages constituted a political community or the polis. Each of these household, village, and state indicated different levels of self sufficiency and or autocracy or autarky also. The nature of an association with was its end, namely self sufficiency, which means not only the satisfaction of economic needs but also the realization of the full human potential. This was possible only within the state. The state was the most sovereign and inclusive association, offering a framework for a full and true life. Just move on our next slide. It's about Aristotle's classifications of constitution. Famous historian Herodotus was the first person to speak of the classification of constitutions. He discussed the relative merits of the various forms of governments, monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. His verdict is that all of them suffer from certain defects and all of them lead to tyranny. Herodotus, however, says that of all forms of government, monarchy is the best. And next one, Socrates also classified constitution into three: monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Plato also gives a detailed description of the various constitutions to us. And now, Aristotle classified, and Aristotle or Plato or the Greek philosophers gives detailed description of the various constitutions to us. It may be this surprising that Plato classifies democracy as a powered form of government. Plato gives his reasons. Government is science. It is possibly only when the number of rules is small in that they cannot attain a scientific mind. In a city of 500, there are not even 50 good chess players. Similarly, we cannot find as many good kings. Kings are those who have knowledge of political science. The best government is in which kings are rulers. Platonic condemnation of tyranny and oligarchy requires no explanation. If we move on, constitutions nothing but classification of constitution, nothing but classification of government also. So if we move on, Aristotle's classification of government, that Aristotle classification of government is both quantitative and qualitative. It is a quantitative because the form of the state is determined by the number of persons who enjoy political power in the state, whether the political power belongs to one, few, or many. It is qualitative because the form of state is also determined by the end of the state and the spirit of its government. There are the two bases of his classification of states, and is the qualitative aspect which differences between the pure and perverted forms of state and governments. If a government pursues the common good of the community, it is called pure, but if does not pursue this end, it is called, or it is said to be perverted or dangerous government. Aristotle's ideas on this may be tabulated as follows: that number wise and pure or perverted or degenerated. So one, monarchy, tyranny; few, aristocracy, oligarchy; many, policy, democracy. Aristotle divides governments into two: governments in which common interest is promoted and governments in which private interests of a particular group is promoted, and each is divided into three. Thus, there are three true forms of government and three perverted forms of governments. The three are good are monarchy, aristocracy, and polity. Just focus on this slide and please pay attention and explanation. The three are good are monarchy, aristocracy, and polity. The three perverted forms are tyranny, oligarchy, and democracy. Aristotle says that the finest type of government is the rule of one man who is supremely virtuous. This is monarchy, particularly unlimited hereditary monarchy. During the time of Aristotle, royal rule was considered by the Hellenes as a barbarous form of government, a rulership over slaves. Aristotle thought that not monarchy but tyranny is the rule over slave, and therefore suitable for the barbarians who by nature are slave. This is the political atmosphere in which Aristotle presents his theory of constitutions. It is true that he never expressly says or not even struggle that Macedonian monarchy is the best. Thus, Aristotle is not a unabashed support of monarchy which he is having the mind different from the normal type of monarchy. His monarchy is preeminent because there is more virtue on it than in other and therefore defends it as the best form of government. Aristotle has also pointed out that no form of government of constitution is permanent and everlasting. One form is bound to yield to another. A good form, it he believes, will degenerate with the passage of time and replaced by the corresponding perverted form. According to him, governments are always moving in a circle. Sometimes monarchy may degenerate into tyranny. In tyranny, government is based on force and therefore it is the worst type of government. In course of time, tyranny is overthrown by a body of upright men who constitutes aristocracy. In oligarchy, the interests of the many are sacrificed for the sake of few. It tries to maintain itself by force and fraud. The oppressive rule of the oligarchy generates revolutionary conditions. People will rise in rebellion against in authority or establish democracy. In democracy, there is mob rule. There is confusion and chaos. Out of this confusion arises some some cases who establishes means Caesar, who establishes the best form of government, monarchy. Thus Aristotle believes that there is a cycle in the life of every state. Just move on next slide. I, I, in this in this Aristotle's basic form of government, he told that, or he uh, what did we say, he analyzed or he fixed that polity is the best state of Aristotle. So Aristotle accepted the presence of a wealthy class and relatively poor citizens as inevitable, but from the viewpoint of political stability it was necessary to enlarge a group that the neither rich nor poor, namely the middle class. The rich enjoyed great benefits and privileges but were unwilling to accept discipline. The poor, because of their deprivation, mean to social structure not only balancing the oligarchic and democratic elements but also mixing them in the right proportions so as to ensure instability. The middle class was the countervailing force neutralizing the certifiable tendencies generated by the contending forces. The larger the middle class, the greater the possibility of tranquility and stability at the state, for it started middle path between the insolence of the rich and the unruly behavior of the bitterly poor. So, Aristotle saw in rule by the middle class fulfillment of two important political ideals, that is, equality and consensus. And in his views, a polity took into an account of freedom, wealth, culture, noble birth, and numeric superiority. It is also gave a scope for the attainment of goodness and goodness. It symbolized the principle of mean or moderation of the middle way, principle of practical politics. Aristotle excluded the right of participation to all the citizens like Plato. He argued that the working class could not rule and the ruling class should not work nor earn any money. They could own land but not work on it. He defended the right the leisured class to rule, that is middle class. So, if we focus on our next slide, that is Aristotle's views on law and constitution, Aristotle was categorized that a rightly constituted law was the final authority. It was easy to codify laws to meet all general contingencies. Aristotle's ideal was the constitutionally based order. Laws were less arbitrary and fairer. Since these were impersonal as compared to rule by a person, according to Aristotle, the rule of law is preferably to that of a single citizen, even if it be the better course to have an individual's rule. They should be made law guardians or ministers of the laws. Aristotle contended that a free political relationship was one where the subject did not totally surrender his judgment and responsibility for both us, ruler and the ruled, has a defined legal stations. The passionless authority of law gave to the magistrate and the subject a moral equality and dignity respectively. A constitutional ruler, unlike a dictator, and ruled over his willing subjects by consent. The authority that was wielded by a constitutional ruler over one subject was different from the one of the master wielded over his slave, since the latter juggled reason to rule himself. Political authority also differed from the authority that a husband exercised over his wife and children. Aristotle contended that a serious flaw in Plato's reasoning was the failure to distinguish political authority from that of household, as evident from Plato's comment in the Statesman. What the state was like a family writ large, a child not yet an adult would not be entitled to being treated as an equal, women being inferior were unequal to men. A political relationship was one of equality. In the contrary, an ideal state would not be constitutional or political in the if the differences between its objects is the best and higher life possible. Constitutional rule had three main elements. First, it was a rule in the general or common interest of the populace, as compared to a rule by a faction or a tyrant. Secondly, since it was lawful, a government was carried on it in accordance with general regulations and not by arbitrary decrees. Moreover, a government could not act contrary to the constitution. And third one, constitutional government meant willing subjects ruled by the consent rather than by force. A constitution for Aristotle was not only a basic law determining the structure of the government and allocation of powers between the different branches within a government, but it is also reflected a way of life. A constitution given identified to the police, which meant that a change in the constitution brought about a change in the police. It is evident that constitution had two aspects: the ethical or the aims and goals to be pursued by a community, and the institutional or the structure of political institutions and offices, and the distribution of power in its ethical sense, and the distribution of powers in its ethical sense. A constitution for Aristotle provided the identity of a salute for its examined by the relationship between a good citizen and good man. As a result, different constitutions required different kind of good citizens, where a good man was always the same. Only under an ideal constitution there was identify between a good man and good citizen. A good citizen was one who possessed the moral wisdom to become a good ruler and good subject. So, if you move on Aristotle's view on slavery, the 6th century BC was the period of social and economic revolution caused by the expanding commerce and increased slave labor. Therefore, the issue of slavery was a live on, alive. Aristotle recognizes slavery. He also recognizes that there has been much debate on the question of slavery, but makes no definite pronouncements on the enslavement of the defeated Greeks through Plato definitely prohibits such a practice. Perhaps he is inclined to regard slavery as very proper to the barbarian people who by nature are slaves. So, who is slaves? According to Aristotle, anyone who by nature is not his own man but another's is a slave. In other words, any man who has no personality of his own, a mind of his own, is a slave. In, is slavery necessary? Aristotle answers this question in the affirmative. A citizen needs slaves in order to develop his moral and intellectual excellence in which he is capable of. The development of these faculties demands leisure which can be provided only by the slavery. Thus, citizen cannot develop his personality and engage himself in leisure activities unless he is assisted by a number of slaves. A man cannot produce a good music without the help of instruments. Slavery is therefore justified from the point of view of the master. Slavery is also justified from the point of view of the slave. If the slave by nature has the same capacity to his master, in it is unjust that his development should be stunted in order to premiere the interest of another, and the enslavements of such men has been condemned by the Aristotle as unnatural. Aristotle said that slavery is a natural institution. It is a natural institution in the sense that it embodies the principle of subordination and rule by the superior over the inferior. By the virtue of the principle, the soul would rule the body with the same authority of a statement. It is clearly beneficial and natural to the body that it should rule by the soul. Similarly, it is natural and beneficial to the soul that it should be ruled by mind. This is true not only for man's inner life but also outside it. It is also issue of relation of man to animals. It is better for animals that they should be ruled by men. It is natural that the male who is superior to the female should rule the latter because she has an inferior capacity. Now, it must be clear to us that Aristotle divides all human beings into two classes on the basis of their capacities: those who have the capacity for self development and those who do not have. It is possible to classify all individuals on this basis. Aristotle never doubts the validity of the assumptions, though he recognizes the difficulties involved in it. There are many criticisms on Aristotle's slavery. Uh, the theory of slavery as given by Aristotle is full of difficulties. Number one, it is impossible to believe that some are not capable for developing their personality. And number two, the classification of individuals on the basis of capacity is an impossible task. So, if we move on our next slide, just focus on it. Aristotle's theory of justice. Aristotle also, like his master Plato, believed that justice is very essence of this state, and that no policy can endure for a long time unless it is founded on a right scheme of justice. It is with the consideration in view that Aristotle proceeds to set forth this theory of justice. So, Aristotle has divided justice into two parts. One is universal justice and two is particular justice. Universal justice is known as complete justice, in fact, implies obedience to laws. It is continuous with virtue, it has identifiable with moral virtue. It was responsible for regulating in all public and social relations. For him, universal justice laid in law abidings and was possible only in an ideal society. So, number two is particular justice. The particular justice of Aristotle is based on the conceptions of the same as an association of equals. As a member of this association, an individual has his right in relation to the whole, he has also his rights as against each. To provide him a system of rights in relation to the whole is the business of the distributive justice. To protect these rights against the infringement by other of the works and corrective justice. Particular justice again divided into two kinds. There are distributive justice and corrective justice. So, Aristotle's distributive justice is the name of that principles of distribution by which goods, services, honor, and officers are distributed among the citizens of state. And corrective justice is the second kind of particular justice. Is corrective justice means we have already seen that though distributive justice, a certain system of rights is created which establishes a sort of proportional equality in the states. It is the business of the corrective justice to see is that the proportionate equality so established may not be distributed or violated. For example, Aristotle illustrates a buyer who goes to the market and purchases a commodity from a seller but does not pay the price of the commodity. Disturbs proportionate equality because in doing so he denies the seller his right to receive the cost of his commodity. Coercive justice in this way prevent in an individual from making encroachment upon the rights of his fellows. Just focus on our next slide, that is Aristotle theory of revolution. So Aristotle explained in great detail the theory of revolution in his study of nearly 158 constitutions that helped him understand the implications of revolutions on a political system. In his work Politics, he discussed at length all about revolutions. Based on his study, Aristotle gave a scientific analysis and expert treatment to the subject of revolutions. He gave a very broad meaning to the term revolution, which means two things to him. Firstly, it implies any major or minor change in the constitution, such as a change in a monarchy or oligarchy, and so on. Secondly, it implies a change in the ruling power, even though it did not lead to a change in the government or the constitution. He further stated that the revolution could be either direct or indirect, thereby affecting a particular institution. According to Aristotle, causes of revolutions means two categories of causes of revolutions are general and particular. General causes according to Aristotle, revolutions take place when the political order fails to correspond to the distribution of property, and hence tensions arise in the class structure, eventually leading to revolutions. Argument over justice are as the heart of the revolution. Generally speaking, the case of revolutions is a desire on the part of those who are devoid of virtue and who are motivated by an urge to possess property, which is in the name of their opponents. In other words, the game of upheaval in inequality. So, Aristotle listed certain general causes of revolution that affect all type of governments and states. There are the mental state or feelings of those who revolt, and number 2, the motive which they desire to fulfill, and number 3, the immediate source or occasion of revolution outburst. The mental state is nothing but a desire for equality, and it is state of disequilibrium. And second is particular causes. Apart from the general causes of revolution, Aristotle also gives certain specific causes in various types of states. For instance, in democracies, discontentment is bred by the dangerous or damages who attack the rich either individually or collectively and build hatred among the people who become revengeful and violent, and this situation leads to conflicts. Aristotle further believed that it is not necessary that oligarchy become democracy or vice versa, but they might change into a completely different system. As far as the monarchies and the tyrannies are concerned, revolution are caused by insolence, resentments of insults, fears, contempt, desire for fame or influence of neighboring states, sexual offenses, and physical infirmities. So, Aristotle also gave some suggestions to prevent the revolutions. Aristotle called upon the kings to believe is one principle maxim to prevention is better than cure, and he strongly advised the rulers that they must believe that they can fool some people all the time, all the people for the sometimes, and not at all the people all the time. He also stated that the rulers must provide due care to all those people in their domain, and further every citizen must be given a chance to express their opinions about the government, and the tenure of the officials must be short term. And thus democracy and aristocracy would be combined to produce stable policy. The retiring officer should hand over the charge of public funds to another in public, and the officers whose performance was good must be honored. And Aristotle further stated that the rich should be not be allowed to exhibit their riches at in roses jealousies among others. Finally, a statesman interested in avoiding revolutions must prevent extremes of poverty and wealth. And secondly, Aristotle opined the quality ruler would never be able to stop revolution. So to ensure this, quality rulers must be first loyal to constitution, and secondly they should be competent, able and worthy and perform their duties. And finally, Aristotle argues that a correct system of education is the most effective instrument for curbing the revolutionary instinct and preserve social order. So, just move on our next slide, that is Aristotle's views on state. Like a true scientist, Aristotle does not attempt any impossible schemes in formulation his theory of ideal state. His best state, therefore, is Plato's second best or sub-ideal state, which is realized all mortals. The following some mains as a some main salient features of Aristotle ideal state is Aristotle discusses the questions of the best constitution for his ideal state. but he is not merely concerned with what is the best but as to what is the best attainable state in a particular situation. According to Aristotle, the state lives a life of complete virtue, therefore, the state must be ruled either by one by few who are virtuous. According to Aristotle, polity in certain the best which avoids political extremes to him the very source of political evils. As for example, extreme wealth makes people arrogant and incapable of obedience, and extreme poverty makes them slavish and incapable of command. If the state is divided into two classes, that is, a very rich and the very poor, therefore, cannot uh, there cannot be any sense of friendship, harmony, and unity, and the best state cannot be realized. The state, therefore, is the best where political power is vested in the middle class. Such a form of Aristotle's calls as polity or the constitutional government. It is an attempt to unite the freedom of the poor and the wealth of the rich without giving either principle exclusively predominance. In practice, Aristotle says constitutional government based on the limited suffrage turns out to be the held constitution for most states. Just move on our next slide, that is Aristotle's concept of citizenship. According to Aristotle's concept of citizenship, according to Aristotle, is quite different from modern citizenship. In a narrow sense, a citizen is the resident of a city or one who has the privilege of living in a state. In a broad sense, the term is not restricted to the resident of a city only, but to any resident living within the territorial jurisdictions of a state. Aristotle observes that only those persons who have private property and leisures and who are not dependent upon others for the means for their livelihood should enjoy the rights of citizenship. He expects his citizenship to play a double role, that a lawmaker and the law interpreter. Besides, a citizen should leave freedom from economic worries to play his proper role on the legislature and that of a judge. Keeping these qualifications in view, Aristotle denies rights of citizenship, no mechanics and laborers, because these people do not have leisure to perform political functions. So, in Aristotle's view, that slaves should not cherish the idea of becoming citizens even in their dreams. They are before outside the purview of citizenship. Further, Aristotle says that mere enjoying private and civil rights do not entitle him to citizenship, because they are enjoyed even by aliens in many places. The deprived and excited are also not entitled to citizenship. According to Aristotle, the citizen who were seeking to define is a citizen in the uh, strictest sense, against whom no such exception can be taken, and his special characteristic is that he shares in the administration of the justice and in office. So, women are also deprived of citizenship as they are dependent upon others. Therefore, to put it precisely, Aristotle's idea of citizenship is that of the economically independent gentlemen who have enough experience, education, and leisure to devote themselves to active citizenship. So, we'll move on our next slide, that is Aristotle's views on women and family. Aristotle provided a common sense defense of the family. He did not abolish private households, for the family was a source of pleasure for both men and women, since it created and established a bond that united members, allowing them to space for the exercise and development of their individual talents. Aristotle was critical of the Socrates' Platonic conception of communism on the promise that the abolish the family would mean its destruction as a school of moral and civic virtues for the young. The family fostered love and friendship and established a bond between its members in an orderly way. Its natural hierarchy ensured stability and afforded the perceptions for the pursuit of virtue. His defense of the family was attention that Socrates and Plato gave to women's education, but he was critical of their proposal for sexual equality as it ignored the diversity that existed in the private sphere. Aristotle was equally critical of the Spartan model also, and a woman's rightful place was house because her special abilities as a wife, mother, and household, while a man acquired is similar to that of a statesman within the city, preserving what had been acquired and ensuring stability. The family was a sphere of inequality with differentiations in power and authority arising from sex, age, and ability. Interestingly, Aristotle considered the family as an aspect of important polis, the sphere of equality. And also, according to Aristotle, a husband and wife relationship differed from the one between a governor and the governed, which kept changing. In a political community, the position of the ruler and ruled interchanged depending on circumstances and the dictates of justice. But in a husband and wife relationship, the former was endowed with a natural gift for command and the latter for obedience. It was constitutional with adequate space for constant negotiation, debate, and arbitration, as in the case of normal politics. It was not despotic like the one between a master and his slave. The husband wife relationship was exercised in the interests of the members of the household to enable the husband to emerge a winner, reinforcing his dominance as the head within the household, while the master slave had no relation capacity to the acquired some intelligence by serving his master. So, if we move on our conclusion part, till now I discussed about who is Aristotle and Greek political thinkers and introduction of Aristotle, life sketch, and Aristotle as Plato's student, and Aristotle as Alexander's teacher, and Aristotle writings, and also we discussed Aristotle contemporary conditions, and also we focus on Aristotle's views on human nature and state, and also we examined the classification of constitution and the government. Both are same, but slight difference is there. So we also focus a key differences on that particular topic, that is Aristotle's classification of government also, and we discussed about basic forms of the government, and also we discussed Aristotle's views on law and constitution, and also we focus on Aristotle's views on slavery, and also theory of justice, and we discussed theory of revolution also, and we discussed the Aristotle's views on ideal state, and also the concept of citizenship, and also Aristotle's views on women and family. So this is all about Aristotle, and now I am going to conclude uh, with some examines or some explanation about final remarks about Aristotle. That is, Aristotle has a rightly been called a political scientist, for he defined the subject matter of politics and It defined its core elements, namely sovereignty of law, constitutionalism, faith in modernization, causes and remedies of revolution, and policy the middle class state as the best practicable and stable political system. Aristotle's main force was on the best practicable state or constitution. In the law, Plato contended that the mixed constitution was the best and the most stable for good government. Aristotle's politics has served as a foundation work for the whole written in tradition. Influences of Aristotle was wider than Plato's. Aquinas and the entire Christian tradition during the medieval era were inspired by Aristotle. Machiavelli used his ideas no mixed constitutions to analyze instability. Aristotle bequeathed a great and profoundly that intellectuals throughout the world continue to pay well deserved homage to Aristotle as the master of to those who know. He was a great pioneer in a political science, and no discussion is ever complete without a reference to his brilliant insights and methods of analysis. So, this is all about the Aristotle, and hope you all are enjoyed, and we will meet our next session with next class with another political thinker. So thank you, and thank you one and all.